there, listeners. Are you feeling the weight of the world? Well, you're not alone. The U.S. Surgeon General says nearly 50% of parents are overwhelmed by stress. And guess what? It's affecting us all. Just last year, we heard about an epidemic of loneliness hitting half our population, especially young adults. But there's hope. I'm Scarlett Lewis, founder of the Choose Love movement. We're dedicated to your safety, health, and well-being with proactive mental health strategies. Imagine a life where stress and loneliness are replaced by joy and connection. We've already reached millions with essential life skills to prevent violence, substance abuse, and mental illness. Want to join this life-changing movement? It's easy. Visit chooselovemovement.org today. Become a member, spread the word, and access our free resources. Together, we can create a loving, supportive community. Remember, all the nurturing, healing love you give comes back to you tenfold. Thank you for choosing love.
I choose love. I choose love.
Welcome to the Choose Love podcast, where we dive into the heart of what it means to live a life grounded in courage, gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion in action. Today, we're thrilled to welcome a guest whose work beautifully complements our mission, Meg McSherry, author of the empowering new book, Take a Breather, Overachiever. Meg is a boundary expert, burnout survivor, and guide for those of us who are ready to stop living for others' expectations and start living for ourselves with clarity, intention, and self-compassion. Her book is a breath of fresh air for anyone who's felt the pressure to be everything for everyone, and it's packed with both wisdom and wit. In a world that glorifies busyness, Meg reminds us of the power of pausing, the strength in saying no, and the freedom that comes with setting healthy boundaries, not as a form of disconnection, but as a profound act of self-love. We'll be exploring how her work aligns with the Choose Love formula and how boundary setting is not just a personal skill, but a critical tool for healing, empowerment, and modeling love for others. Welcome, Meg.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Honored that you asked me, really. So thank you. I'm excited to talk about the book and talk about boundaries. Yes.
Yeah, me too, because I need some work with my boundaries. And that's why I was really excited. I'm holding up a copy of Meg's book, and it's not long, it's not intimidating. And we had passed at a conference, and you handed me a copy of the book, and the person that you were with said she read it on the plane. And I thought, ooh, I'm going to read it on my plane ride home. And I did. And you said you were reading my book on your plane ride home, which is amazing.
Yes.
And so it's not a long read, but it's a pretty profound read, especially if you are a people pleaser like I am and struggle with boundaries. It was really kind of eye-opening, and I appreciated it very much.
Good. I'm really glad. I'm really glad. A lot of folks have given me feedback that I wasn't expecting of, I didn't realize that was me.
Yeah.
I've had, that's been the most amazing feedback and unexpected feedback I've gotten with the book, is I didn't realize that was me and that I had been doing these things.
Well, was that you? Is that why you wrote the book?
Yes, I wrote yes. The overachieving, I thought I had all the tools and the awareness, and I had broken free from some of that conditioning. And then I stepped in some pain again and went, oops, I'm still operating in it. And so then, yes, I realized, okay, that this is something that we're all working to break free from, I think, in some ways. And it was showing up in everyone that I've been working with for many, many years as well. So both came together, and I thought, I think other people need this information, and I wanted it to be funny and helpful at the same time.
Yeah, there's little anecdotes from from your life. And
Yeah.
you call yourself a reformed people pleaser in the book. And I think I'm not yet reformed. And I think about how I see a lot of people pleasing and how you can lose yourself in that,
Mhm.
and how we do it for connection. There's such a over 50%. I think the CDC said over 60% of people are lonely. And so you want that connection. You want people to like you. And so, but people pleasing is not coming forward as your authentic self. It is,
Right.
it's almost like putting somebody else that's this false front up that wants to please the person in front of them, but it's not really you. And so it is almost like a false sense of connection. I think one, that's a really important awareness. And two, how did boundaries play a role in helping you step back from that people pleasing?
Well, boundaries are the things that are the guardrails to create space for what we really want. So when we look at things we're saying yes to that we really want to say no to, right? All of that is taking up space from things that we really want to be doing. So the only way to shift into having more of what we want and of what is of value to us, we have to put boundaries in place.
So I know I saw a lot of the Choose Love formula in the need for the Choose Love formula weaving through your book. And I know that takes courage initially to be able to say no to somebody that that's a hard thing. It's hard for me too. I find that my schedule just gets absolutely packed because I say yes. And here's the thing, I want to do everything. I really do. I would love to have 48 hours in a day, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. So how how do how do how do I do that?
Well, exactly what you said, acknowledging that I only have also so much energy in a day. And I need to be very picky where I'm choosing to put it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So when you think about that, then you look at all the options and you're able to say what feels best to me to do today or with my time and with my energy. And it's also important that we have time for fun and to recharge at the same, and so that we can keep giving at the high levels we want to. So that's what I would say as far as how you start to make that shift. And you can also put things in place, supports in place to help reinforce that.
I mean, I think you have to schedule fun now.
Yes.
For me, I
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
feel like that because if I don't, I have 24 hours worth of work. And if and I'm comfortable behind my computer actually. So, it's inside my comfort zone. So I tend to like come back after the day's done, even to catch up. And so, it takes discipline actually to schedule in that fun because productivity feels good as well. It gets complicated, right?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So it takes courage to say no. And there's a little bit of a guilt sometimes around that. I know I feel,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just guilt that I'm saying no to you. It's also guilt that it's also FOMO. And you mentioned that in the book, fear
Yes.
of missing out. Oh my gosh, if I don't do a podcast with Meg, I actually asked you to do a podcast with me, but I'm saying, gosh, if I don't do a podcast with Meg, then, my audience isn't going to learn about boundaries from Choose Love and they're going to miss out. It's FOMO everywhere. And I mean, there's just so much in taking into consideration when you're thinking about boundaries.
Yes, it's not simple, and we have to step into it and slowly. However, a lot of people are also acknowledging having anxiety, and really, who doesn't? Because now more and more people understand how our brain is working, and that everybody has anxiety because that part of our brain is protective and it never cuts off. Well, certainty is what brain is really craving. And boundaries create certainty for our brain, and it lowers our anxiety as well. So it's doing that bigger thing for us that I think many folks, don't know about.
That's that's huge. So what you're saying is that if you have anxiety,
Mhm.
if you actually put up some boundaries for your schedule and you have that creates certainty in your life. I'm just repeating it because it's
Yes.
huge,
Yes.
and it creates a little bit more certainty in your life. You have a greater sense of control when
Yes.
you're the one running the show and not other people. Then you reduce anxiety.
Yes. That's right. That's right. So that's that we all want to feel more calm, relaxed, at ease, and like you said, feel like we are in control. And when we're in anxiety, we do not feel in control. And boundaries helps us to feel in control, and all of those other things that you mentioned. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I mean, okay, I'm just going to say I've gotten better because I know that I've worked on my boundaries with therapists. Okay, so I've been in therapy my whole life. We've worked on everything. So I'm just going to say, and I'm going to do a positive affirmation here. I'm getting better at having
Nice.
boundaries. But somebody that's out there that is really struggling with anxiety, with overwhelm. I hear a lot of that in the education field, but I speak
Mhm.
in a varied fields, and really overwhelm is such a big issue right now. And I think, part of it is what's going on in our world and the fear that is so just like a picking up the phone and checking a headline away, but also that comes from not having boundaries. And do you think that in times like this where there seems to be quite a bit going on, and a lot of what's going on we don't have control over and we may not agree with, and so that makes conflict within ourselves, which can add to that feeling of overwhelm? I mean, how can boundaries help that?
Absolutely. So you mentioned a good thing and a good point about the phone. And something I talk about often is, right, the first thing we do when we wake up really sets our brain to focus and hunt for that the rest of the day. So when we wake up, if the first thing we're looking at is something distressing on our phone, something anxiety producing, then we are going to probably be feeling overwhelmed most of the time. So the first thing is knowing and understanding that everything we do meets a need. Everything we do meets a need. So we must replace it with something. We can't just stop doing something without replacing it.
Okay, so are
And
you saying, like, in the morning when I pick up my cell phone first thing, which I do, and I know I shouldn't, and I still do it, what is that need?
that need is well, one, it's a habit, right? It's a
It's a habit.
pattern.
Definitely have it.
Uh-huh. And so that need is to probably it's stemmed from I need to know what's going on,
Yeah.
and I need to get going, I need to be productive,
Yeah.
because that's all tied to our worth a lot of times. And that was the part I had to break that I didn't realize I was doing.
Ooh, that resonates. I resent
That
that.
Yeah, when I boil down what is happening here, how did I get myself into this tremendous amount of pain point a couple of years ago? I realized that I was tying, all of that was tied to my sense of worth. And so I think productivity, and I am grateful for where I live, but we have been conditioned right into productivity creates money, creates worth, and that's part of all of the piece, a part of it that we've all, I think, been conditioned into. So we have to
So,
be mindful of that.
so explain your rock bottom. Explain, why, what happened, and what got you turned around, because there, as you said, there has to be a pain point, really, to
Mhm.
facilitate change, right?
Right. And my hope is that with this book and everything that I talk to folks about is that I'm minimizing their pain points, just like you. That, we're going to have them, but it's nicer to have those small pain points and learn than have them stack and stack and stack and stack. For me, I knew the next thing that was coming was I was going to get physically ill. I could feel it coming. And so I was working 10-hour days, weekends. I was doing things I didn't enjoy doing, but was pushing myself to still do them. And that just stacked over time. And I
And
was,
these are, you're saying, work things, mommy things, like in all aspects of your life, right?
yes. And though I had decided that it was very work heavy because I thought, okay, once I build this to a certain place, then I'll have more free time. Then I'll be able to do more with my family, right? Was kind of disillusioned in that. And and then I realized, uh-oh, I the veil lifted once I hit that really big pain point, and still was pushing and pushing, and it wasn't getting better. And so then I hit that pain point. I did a 180. I almost shut down my business fully, but I just shifted things from in a tremendous way. And that's really the very short story of it. But and how I could breathe again at that point after I made that shift. And it was because I was doing things for the wrong reasons.
Doing things for the wrong reasons. Yeah.
Under the veil of thinking I was doing it, for the right reasons. But when the pain keeps coming, when the hits keep happening, now I tell folks, they're just going to keep coming.
Hmm.
There's barriers, and then there's pain points that just keep one after the other. And that's when I would say that we're being advised from a place of spiritual expression to or divinity to change what we're doing. So,
That's so interesting because, my dad would always tell me, do what you love. And this was even, after I graduated from college, and do what you love.
yeah.
And I always thought, oh God, so easy for him to say, right? He's got money, and he's established, and now he's telling me from this high top of the mountain, just do what you love, and for me, it just, I thought that was an impossibility. I just thought that was ridiculous, for him to advise me that. And now, I kind of get into probably the age that he was when he gave me that advice. And I think it actually was really good advice. And I wish that I had followed it. And I didn't realize that there was so much fear, underlining all my choices of what I did for a living and all my relationships too, frankly. And now I realize he was right. If I had really thought about what I loved and I had done that, I would have been able to make a living. I didn't think I would be able to make a living doing it,
Right.
and I thought I had to compromise myself
Mhm.
to to do that. And you don't. So I mean, I'm back to square one where he said, and that's so true. And life doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. As far as, you working those 10 hours a day. And by the way, when you describe your workload, it is my workload. And nobody is forcing me to do it.
Right.
I willingly come into my office at night and open my computer, and because I like doing it, I get fulfillment out of it. It's part of my healing process too. But doing it so much, doing it, 12 or 16 hours a day, that lends itself to burning out from it, and
Mhm.
it's really important. We got to take care of ourselves. So interesting.
Yes, I think I had it in my mind that burnout comes from other people, right? Like when you work for someone else. And so it never really occurred to me, oh, we can do that to ourselves, even in our own work, if we are our own solo entrepreneur business person, right? And that's part of what happened with me as well. So yes, like we can do it to ourselves, definitely.
That's so interesting. Yeah, you think about, actually, yeah, I never made the distinguishing between uh people driving you to burnout and you driving yourself. I wonder what the percentage is of each. And it's probably, if you're, and your book says, take a breather, overachiever. I mean, we're talking right now to the overachievers out there that are pushing themselves, and I've always been that. And I know you have too. Um, your book says a guide to setting boundaries without losing your mind. And it's so important. And the other thing that's so important is the way that we manage our lives. And I don't think that I did such a good job with my kids, um, with them growing up, because I never took vacation, by the way. Um, I and it was due to fear. I didn't want to miss something at work. I thought I might get fired. Like that little thing in the back of my head, like I'm going to get fired if I take off, because I didn't see other people taking off. So I have to be present. I never took vacations. And um and then if my kids got up and they were sick, this is something I really regret. Um they got a little squeeze of Tylenol and they went to school. Because mommy has to go to work. So you're just going to have to, of course, this was pre-COVID, everybody relax, right? But, um, but that was the way that it was. And, looking back, I wish I'd spent the day with them, just seen that as an opportunity to sit and watch a movie and care for them. I would have my mom, or I would have, a friend watch the kids while I worked. And so even down to that, little minute take off when your kids are sick and be present with them. And then the modeling part of that with your kids, and how to have boundaries. Can you talk a little bit about that? I can't, because I don't know. I didn't do it, but I'd love to hear from you what that would look like. I mean, we're
Yeah.
modeling for our kids, and our kids are learning from us how to be. And so,
Right.
there's a lot to unpack there. How do you have boundaries with your family, but also how do you model the same for kids as they're growing up?
You bring up a really good point. Yes, it is the modeling. And one of the things that I think is helpful to always ask is this something that I want to be modeling for my children, my niece, the younger kids in my life, whoever that might be? Absolutely. Sometimes I'll ask folks that question, and they'll go, "Oh, yeah, no, that's so I don't want to be teaching that." So,
Right.
the biggest, I tell folks, the biggest impact we make on other people is what they see us doing. Right? That's so true. That's so true. Yeah. So in the moment, I think, well, I'll just say this, that in your book, I was like, wow, Scarlett has done and does an amazing job of being present, taking those moments, valuing those moments. So I saw something very different than what you just described in yourself, by the way.
Yeah,
And
you know
thought,
why?
oh,
I was a different because I worked on myself.
oh,
I
okay.
did work on myself. I worked on being present with my kids. And that's the way to live life with the fewest regrets, is being present with them. When I was present with them, I was there in the moment. And so that was great. You know, I was working all the time, but when I was present, we did have a lot of fun. You know, and I mean, it could have been more, right? It could always be more. But you know, I was working on that. And so yeah, that's what you saw.
Yes, yes, that was evident. Okay,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're absolutely right. And so being able to learn how to be present. Now, nobody teaches us that. That's not our natural defaults that we're all wired with. And
Mhm.
so that's why I teach and have been doing mindfulness for over 15 years, going on 20 years. This is not the way our brain is naturally wired. So, excuse me, the ability to learn how to be present and bypass the anxiety part of our brain, that's huge. And mindfulness is the best approach, or tapping, which you talk about in your book and have had experience with too. So
Can I ask you, how is our brain naturally wired?
so we're not wired to go into two, I call them defaults. A distressing thought shows up and we go one or two places. We go into the thought that then hooks into another thought, that then hooks into another thought, past thought, future thought, and kind of down the rabbit hole we go. I always think about how Alice in Wonderland is like whirling around down into that hole. And our brain can only tolerate that for so long. So then we switch over into avoidance and distraction. And those things are always at our fingertips. Now, even good parents will without awareness teach their children avoidance and distraction. So I would say to you, okay, when you were growing up and you got upset as a kid, did your parents say, okay, stop what you're doing, take a break, and then and go do this other thing and then come back to that, and or have a cookie?
Mm,
And when you think about
interesting.
what that's teaching, it's distract yourself from this upsetting situation
With
and emotions.
food. That's why I love cookies
Me too.
and ice cream.
Me too.
Can't wait to call my mom.
That's all your fault. No.
Yeah.
So so like I said, even good, even really wonderful parents are teaching this, and say that's why the phone is such a oh, kind of an addictive kind of thing, because whatever we choose is so closely at our fingertips. And I used to think, for example, that people that would say, "Oh, I read like 3 books a week," and I just thought, "Wow, I hope they don't ask me, how much I'm reading." And then I came to understand, oh, that's what they use. The bottom line is, when we're choosing something to get away from discomfort of emotion or thoughts, there's always a consequence we don't like.
Uh, That's so interesting. So, you know, our phones, when we distract ourselves, we get dopamine, right? I guess whether it's on the phone or a cookie, or because we're not in those distressing thoughts anymore. So we can be distressed for so long. Is there like an average amount of time that you can stay with your distressed thoughts? Do we know?
That is a good question. I've not looked to see if that's been researched, specifically the amount of time.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's probably varies based on your tolerance for
Right.
stress, right? Or your level of trauma. I've never heard that you have the distressing thoughts and then you distract to get away, which would be
Mhm.
really good. We teach, if you want to move away from the distressing thoughts, think of something that you're grateful for. So it's not, that too gives you a 10% boost in mood, but it's doing it in a more positive way, then I'm not saying a cookie is not positive. I'm hungry for a cookie right now. Thanks a lot. No, but it's, it's something that's available at all times. Anywhere you are, there's always something to be grateful for. That's so interesting.
Yes.
So, okay. So the distraction can be, gosh, it could even be reading books.
Yes, so anything that we're doing that's not a mindful choice is driven to get out of this discomfort, and there's always a consequence. So the book example, oftentimes folks that are using that as their go-to distraction and avoidance, they will wake up late, be late for work, miss important events, dinner, things that they've committed to. That's what they've told me. And so there's
Why will they miss them?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Why will they miss?
Because they got so consumed in the book.
Oh.
Right. Right. So anything that we are choosing, even things that on the surface look like really healthy things to do, if we're doing it to get away from a certain thought or a feeling, there's a consequence. Now, gratitude is one of the best replacement options.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. It's one of the best replacement options. It's the only emotion I've found that no other emotion can be present when we're fully in the feeling part of gratitude.
Yes. Yes. You replace. You cannot be in two at one time. Cannot be in two
Right.
places at once, love or fear. And so, right. So it's a great replacement. I'm wondering, I want to go back to, there are always consequences to when you distract yourself. And I just think like the number one distraction in today's world is the cell phone.
Yes,
So,
it is.
it's so easy to pick up. It's so easy to get lost in. And when you were saying, missing things, I'm thinking about my mom that gets so involved in the cell phone that she would choose probably to do that because that's also a comfort zone, right? I think she'd choose to do that certainly more than take a walk or, do a lot of things actually, because it's entertaining, talk about, the ultimate distractor and something that is wired to give us the hits of dopamine that, always leave us wanting more, but we always get another one. And what do you think, and I, it's not a rhetorical question. I really do wonder what are the negative outcomes of using the cell phone as a distraction other than you can totally get lost. And like any good addict, and I'm talking about myself, I talk myself into using it more. I'm like, oh, I've only been on it for an hour. I deserve to have another 30 minutes. I can stay up 30 minutes later. I love these little baby animals and they're making me feel good. And what's wrong with baby animals? It's like crazy how we talk ourselves into, being distracted like that.
I choose love.
Hey there, listeners. Are you feeling the weight of the world? Well, you're not alone. The U.S. Surgeon General says nearly 50% of parents are overwhelmed by stress. And guess what? It's affecting us all. Just last year, we heard about an epidemic of loneliness hitting half our population, especially young adults. But there's hope. I'm Scarlett Lewis, founder of the Choose Love movement. We're dedicated to your safety, health, and well-being with proactive mental health strategies. Imagine a life where stress and loneliness are replaced by joy and connection. We've already reached millions with essential life skills to prevent violence, substance abuse, and mental illness. Want to join this life-changing movement? It's easy. Visit chooselovemovement.org today. Become a member, spread the word, and access our free resources. Together, we can create a loving, supportive community. Remember, all the nurturing, healing love you give comes back to you tenfold. Thank you for choosing love.
I choose love.
Yes. Yes,
And
absolutely.
not mindful when you're distracted. You're not creating the life that you want to live when you are in that distracted state.
Right. I would say that if a person is able to pause and say, is this what I want to be doing right now? Really, truly. And if it's yes, then that's a mindful choice. But if it's no, I just needed a break from fill
Yeah.
in the blank,
Yeah.
whatever goes in that blank, then there is something you'd rather be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
So
not even rather, but probably should for your own health and well-being, right?
yes,
I know
absolutely.
everybody's like, don't use should, but I didn't know what other word to put in there. Okay, so how do you start? How do you start developing boundaries in your life for those who are listening to this that want kind of a framework?
Well, the first thing that you ask yourself is, what am I saying? Either you can either say, where am I overwhelmed the most right now? And or what am I saying yes to that I want to say no to?
Mhm.
So you start there, and then you have to step into boundaries. So you look at that and you say, okay, what is one step that I can take here with this area that I've identified that where I'm saying yes or where I don't want to be or I'm overwhelmed, and what's one thing that I can do to protect a little bit more my time and my energy in this space. One of the things we will do sometimes is we tend to think in all or none. I either do this fully or not at all. However, there are all these other options in between. And that's where we need to look, is in between.
In between. So basically, what do I say no to, or what do I let go? Is that the basic question you have to ask yourself?
Yes, you would look at, as you would also ask yourself, what's consuming the majority of my time?
Okay.
So you would audit your time as well.
Yeah.
And so the option then becomes, I can protect some of this time over here and create a boundary that way, or I can be more direct and create a boundary in a place where I'm saying yes, where I want to really say no.
That's good. I remember, so I have a little farm here, and I love animals, and I wanted my kids to grow up around animals. So it just happens. I'm maybe some other farm owners that are listening, they know people, are getting rid of animals. They can no longer take care of them. You say yes because you have the land and the property. So at one point I had rabbits and goats and sheep and chickens and horses and donkeys and minis and dogs and cats and just like quail. I mean, like the list goes on. And I remember a friend of mine came over one day, and I was complaining to her. I was like, I'm running myself ragged. I feel like the only thing that I do is feed these animals and pick up their poop. And like all day long, I don't get to enjoy them. And so
Right.
she's like, well, what do you love? What do you love? And I said, I love horses. I've always loved horses. I love my dogs. I love my chickens because I get eggs. Other than that, like and she said she actually made a call to another farm down the street who showed up immediately because they have summer camps and real busy, and took everything away. And so it just kind of simplified my life in an instant. And I didn't miss, you know the animals that left,
Mhm.
because I knew they went to a great home and they were going to be around even more kids.
Yeah.
Better for them. But I didn't miss the work. And I was able to devote more energy to what I had. So I think that's a good maybe metaphor for putting up those boundaries. And once you do, you're not going to miss what you're not doing, because what you're doing is putting scaffolding up that helps you enjoy your life more. You get more, and you're eking more enjoyment out of it. Is that?
Yes, that was a wonderful example that you shared of in your own experience. Absolutely. Like what, so where's all my time? Where's the majority of my time being consumed is what you were looking at.
Right.
What part of this do I like? What part is exhausting
Yeah.
that I'm not enjoying? And so
Right.
then it's like, okay, you know, what can I tweak here? A lot of times we think that was a good example of being in that middle place of all or none. It sounds like you kept
Right.
the animals that you really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it was a win-win. It
Yeah.
was a win for the wonderful camp and those folks that got those animals that then they didn't have to pay or buy, and it freed you. So yes, that's exactly it. Right.
Yeah. And there are people out there that will push you to the extent that you will be pushed.
Yes.
How do you deal with those kinds of people that are constantly and you talk about this in your book, the people that don't take no for an answer, the people that don't respect your boundaries and expect things because you've always done it, and so they know they're going to get you to the breaking point at some point. How do you deal with that?
Right. Absolutely. They're going to be those folks. And anytime that we break the pattern of how we interact with someone, because we all operate in patterns 24/7, right? That's certainty. So what we're doing is we're disrupting the certainty with this other person. They're not likely going to have a negative response. So just know that that's part of it. And I always tell everyone this is a cautionary that even if the other person was to say, in this example that you're talking about, they're not going to, but if they were to say, oh, I'd like this part to change, they're likely going to have a kind of a negative reaction to that and probably not understand it, because in the brain, there's certainty. I know that when I say this to you, you're going to say this back, and this is how we operate, right? Excuse me. So I think knowing that up front helps.
Interesting. Well, maybe, because I don't know. I think about the fact that, that induces fear. And it's like fear, for me, fear of conflict. I do not like conflict. I'd rather just say yes and get you off my back than literally, and that's been my problem, people pleasing, than say no and get a negative reaction and have to sit in the discomfort and have to continue with that. My breakdown is very soon no, and then the person pushes back. I'm like, okay. And then when you say that, okay, you are so filled. I should say I am so filled with resentment, and it goes both ways, of them and myself, because I am doing something that I don't want to be doing. And I said no, and they wouldn't take no for an answer. And, but here's the thing too, if you're programmed and you've said no and you've had your, boundaries violated and people don't respect them, and the more you do it, the more they know, then that there's going to be a confrontation. And that's where we go to the formula, that definitely takes courage. That's maybe
Yes.
a big reason why a lot of people just say yes, because they know what they're going to get if they don't,
Absolutely.
okay. So for me, who's, I can get to the no, and then somebody goes, oh, please. I mean, I really need the help. I can't do, you did it before. It's not that big a deal. It's not going to take you that much time. You're doing this other thing anyway. How do you deal with that?
So I would say that first you're stepping into being able to really stick with that no. And the best way to do it is you create a pause, if you would, a maybe that I mentioned in the book, where you give yourself some time to respond, and you say, let me look at my calendar and see if I can do that, and I'll get back with you. And it allows you that moment, because you're breaking a pattern, right? So the first thing to breaking a pattern is the awareness and the moment to say, okay, this is showing up. How do I want to respond, right? So that's the first thing. Is, I think, step one, you don't just go from always saying yes to now just being able to say no right out the gate.
Right. That's good.
The taking the pause and putting some kind of space there. However it feels comfortable for you to do that, there's lots of different options, so that then you can really think about that and say, do I want to give energy to this? Is this, if you really want to say no to something, and then I think it allows you to be able to have more of the courage and more of the comfort to say no. Then the other piece that sometimes comes is guilt. And I don't know if that shows up as well for you, or did in the past, but
Yes, of course it does. I was joking. I was like, then you could say, oh, let me check my calendar. And then you can text them and say no. Right.
Yeah. And you can soften it. You can offer another option if you, right. So right. That can be another step in breaking this pattern. You can find a resource of an option and add that to the response. So it gives you time to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do that. However, I think these folks, and here's the number, or right, maybe check over here with this group, or right. So it gives you time to grab that option. Not that it's necessary, not that it's a requirement, but if that would help to allow you to be able to say no and perhaps satisfy the other person, while you're building to break this pattern, to as you build your courage to be able to say no and stick with that and not take it back. That's a good middle place. That's a place to start. And then as you do it and you have success, because you will with that, then it's going to build your confidence to get more strong in your no and sticking with your no.
Yeah. And of course, forgiveness, when you back down and say yes, it's just, and you realize it, and then you realize all the feelings that come along with that. So and remember that to bolster you for next time, so that you can, stick with your boundaries. But forgiveness is a big part of this as well. And then while you're talking, I'm thinking of kids. Please, please, please,
yeah,
please, please, just wearing you down. And the importance of, as you said, your brain likes consistency. Children absolutely need consistency. And even for their sense of safety, they need for parents to have strong boundaries and to remember the boundaries that they put in place. That was kind of my thing. I would set a boundary and totally forget that I did. You guys are going to bed at 8 p.m., and then I completely forget I said that the day before, you know what I mean? But wow, how consistency is so comforting in a child's life, especially with all the anxiety producing stimulus that's going on in our environment.
Yes. And adults too. That never changes. We oftentimes will think about things for children and that it ends there. No, it's the way our brains work, no matter how old we are.
I'm wondering, what's the boundary that changed your life the most?
So the boundary that changed my life the most is that I don't sacrifice myself to have what I thought was success. That the understanding that my worth is not tied to what I produce.
Yeah, that's huge. Huge. It's a different definition of success than the
Mhm.
one that we're programmed with.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I thought I was so wise and had broken from all of that conditioning. And then that snuck up on me, so to speak. And now I realize that, oh, I still had some of that piece of it. And once you come from these big pain points, you just make a decision. I'm going to be so mindful and intentional. I'm not going back to that place. I'm just not going to.
Right. That's really good. What I have another question. What is your favorite overachiever habit that you've lovingly retired?
That I've retired.
Overachiever habit. I'm just curious.
Saying yes to anyone that says that needs my help.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's good. That's really good.
The other, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
The other thing I remember now, it came back.
Yeah.
The frogs back.
It jumped back in. I love
Jump
that.
back in. We were talking about when you were talking about uh, forgiveness was not several months ago. I said yes. And late in the evening to an email of something that was going to take about 40 hours of my time. And I woke up the next day and I went, oh no, I did it. I said yes to something I shouldn't have.
You were tired and weakened by being tired, right? I mean, that happens.
And it was like many of the requests I'm sure you get, it was a important, valuable thing. And so I automatically said yes. However, what I did was I emailed, because all of this was through email. And so I emailed her and I said, I need to apologize. I have looked at my calendar and realized that I'm not going to be able to help you with that. And so part of it too, I wanted to mention is it's also okay, that forgiveness of I said yes, and it's okay for me to go back and say, I need to adjust my boundary, if you would, but what I've
Right.
committed to here, that it's also okay to do that. And that's part of forgiving yourself and then not being resentful as well.
Yeah,
So,
that's really good.
yeah.
That was a really good example. So if listeners could walk away from today's episode with just one takeaway, one mantra, what would you want that to be on boundaries?
That would be that self-sacrifice does not have to happen in order for us to be giving, caring, helpful people.
That's a really powerful statement. That's a really powerful statement. We do not have to sacrifice ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And thank you so much, Meg. I appreciate our conversation. The book, Take a Breather, Overachiever, A Guide to Setting Boundaries Without Losing Your Mind by Meg McSherry. I loved it. It's not that long. You can get through it in one sitting, and it's very helpful. You may know some of the stuff and some of the stuff you may not, but it's such a great reminder to be constantly working on personal boundaries. You're modeling this for your kids and other people in your life. You train the people that you can make these changes and they will respect them. And you will have greater respect for yourself. It's actually practicing self-compassion to be doing that, compassion
Yes.
for yourself, self-love. And that helps, as you said, the way that you see yourself, your self-esteem and your self-worth. It's so important to have good boundaries And I'm so grateful for this conversation. Thank you for sharing with us. Where can everybody find you?
They can find me at thrivingoverachiever.com. And this book is on Amazon. Also at theoverachiever.com, you can get a copy of the book digitally there for free. So,
Wow, really?
yes.
And why are you giving away the book for free digitally?
Because, like you, I'm driven to help people, and that's what I'm driven by. That's why. Yes.
Yeah, so we were like magnets to each other at the conference, and we have something in common there because all of our programming is no cost as well, because I just know how helpful it will be to humanity, and you know the same. I love that about. I didn't realize that. That's really special. So thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm over the moon that I got to be here and meet you and know you and help you spread the Choose Love movement.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, let's stay in touch.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, hey, oh. It's all part of us. We can all choose love. It'll lift you up if you let